UFC 303. What an awesome night of action. I hope you guys really enjoyed the fights because I know I did. I'd like to break down two fights for you. Let's start with MVP versus Ian Machado Garry. Now, I thought that MVP's explosive striking power would get him the W, but instead it seemed like it was the grappling that made the difference in this fight. In the end, the judges gave Ian Garry 2 out of the 3 rounds. Even Dana White said he thought perhaps that this could have gone to a draw instead of a unanimous decision. But nevertheless, let's take a look at what went down in each round. So in the first round, MVP did threaten with that patented leaping in a right hand. But Ian Garry caught one of MVP's kicks and was able to get MVP to the ground. Now, on the ground, Garry was able to get MVP's back and lock in what we call a body triangle, which means he looped his legs around MVP's waist and then crossed one leg over the other. That's a very difficult hold to break. It's a great lock to use if you have long legs and also if the other person has a very skinny waist. That body triangle is a great position to be in because your opponent has to expend a lot of energy to try to break out of that hold. And in the meantime, as Ian Garry did, you threaten with that rear naked choke. So now that was very close because I thought at several moments that MVP was in real trouble with that rear naked choke because it looked like Ian Garry had it almost locked in. But to MVP's credit, he knows how to defend that choke well, and he managed to just kind of stave it off and break Ian Garry's grip around his neck and just kind of ride out in that position until the bell. But definitely we have to give Ian Garry the first round because he was in control for so much of that round with that body lock with MVP's back. Now, second round, I guess MVP decided to pick up the urgency a little bit, and he did actually hurt Ian Garry more than once with that vaunted right hand. Now, Garry, knowing that he was that this maybe he realized that MVP was a little faster than what he had anticipated, so he kind of shot in for a clinch to get MVP up against the cage. From there, they fell to the ground, and Ian Garry tried to get it looked like a heel hook, but his legs those are kind of advanced moves, like all the leg locks and the heel hooks, knee bars, that type of stuff. It looked to me that Ian Garry didn't quite have the right control with his legs on MVP's leg. So for all those leg submissions, it's like 2-on-1. You're using two of your two legs to secure your opponent's leg, and then you get the finish by using your hands to torque or extend. But Ian Garry didn't quite have that level of control over MVP's leg, so MVP was able to turn and break out of that, and then they returned to standing. Where again, I feel like MVP did inflict more damage standing up, and he did hurt Ian Garry a couple of times. So I feel the second round most definitely went to MVP. Now, in the third and final round, I'll assume that Ian Garry was instructed, hey, get this guy on the ground. Because he knows, or he should have figured out, he can't win the striking game with MVP. MVP's just too fast and too explosive. So right off the bat, Ian Garry shoots in for that clinch again, where he's got both hands locked around MVP's torso, and he tries to take him down. However, MVP gets the better position in that he's on top and Ian Garry's got his back on the mat. Now, from there, it's a little bit odd because Ian Garry's not in a good position. And yet, Ian Garry decides to do another body triangle, but from bottom position. So that means he's got both legs wrapped around Michael Venom Page's waist. He's got one leg wrapped over his other ankle to lock it in as a triangle. But, Michael has this superior position. So I'm not sure why Ian Garry chose to lock him and his opponent in that situation. Maybe it was to avoid or to prevent Michael Venom Page from, as we say, posturing up with his back straight to rain down ground and pound strikes to Ian Garry's head. Or, typically from that bottom position, the goal is to get back up. But in a sort of second sort of odd decision, MVP decided, he could broke out of that body lock and then decided to stand back. Even though MVP could have just maintained that superior top position and kept Ian Garry down on his back for a little bit longer. But in any case, they get back up, and then lo and behold, Ian Garry goes in again for body lock, meaning grabbing MVP around his torso with both hands and driving him back towards the cage. Then Ian Garry gets Michael Venom Page's back in the standing position, where he basically jumps on him like they're going to do a piggyback ride. And Ian Garry gets one of his hooks in, meaning he circles one of MVP's legs with one of his legs. And in the meantime, he's trying to get another rear naked choke from that position. So that's what we also call being a backpack. He's got the backpack. MVP is now decided to bend all the way over, presumably to try to let Ian Garry kind of slide off, let gravity take over and have him kind of fall off onto the ground. But MVP is not able to get Ian Garry off his back, quite literally, and so the fight comes to an end with both men in that position. Now, evidently, all three judges gave that third round to Ian Garry. As Dana White pointed out, maybe we could have given that a split, right? So maybe that we call the third round even and the fight gets deemed a draw. But I think the sort of narrative behind this fight is that, we have this young, up-and-coming Ian Garry taking on the veteran striker, Michael Venom Page. And, maybe they just, in quotations, want this younger guy to win. I don't want to get into any conspiracy theory type stuff about this fight. But in the end, I think it was a great technical fight. And I give a huge amount of props to Michael Venom Page for being able to escape that rear naked choke in the first round, and for being able to land his vaunted right hand more than once and really doing damage to Ian Garry. Now, in my opinion, I might edge towards giving MVP the fight, and here's why. It is, in the end, MMA. It's not a point fight. So when you almost get a submission, or you take someone's back but don't get the submission, in the submission game, what do you wind up with? Zero. Goose egg. You get nothing, because we're not really point fighting here. It's not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament. So in the end, who did more damage? Well, Michael Venom Page, because he landed those strikes, which did hurt Ian Garry. Ian Garry did have some great moments with the grappling and on the ground, but he did not get the submission. So, in judo, that's how you have to look at it. I mean, if your opponent is up on the scoreboards, you get them down on the ground and you almost get a choke, you almost get the arm lock, but not quite, and then time runs out. Guess what happens? You lose, because you don't get any points for almost getting a submission. In any case, that's just my sort of philosophy about the fight game. The questions are, who do you think Ian Garry should fight next? who do you think MVP should fight next? I think there's still plenty of from MVP to give us as a fighter in the cage, and I definitely would like to see him fight again. Right, let's move on to the main event. Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka in a rematch. Now, we know that Pereira won their first matchup, and wow, this was quite the dynamic fight and showed us just what a dominant force Alex Pereira really is as a light heavyweight. First round, right off the bat, Pereira starts throwing those leg kicks, and he even throws high head kicks. And Jiri's kind of doing the same thing he always does. He keeps just switching stances right in spot, like without going out or coming or making a step. He just switches his stance right underneath himself, and Jiri's got his hands waving around at about somewhere between his waist and his shoulders, pretty low. Whereas Alex has a nice straight upright torso, and he's got kind of a more conventional kind of boxer's guard, not a tight guard, but a looser guard where his fists are held out at about shoulder height, just in front of his shoulders. Now, throughout that first round, Jiri's making tons of movements. He's out constantly moving his head, kind of bouncing around on his feet, waving his arms all over. But none of this movement is really very effective. I'm guessing he's doing that just to try to offset Alex's throwing his punches at him and landing, just trying to make himself a moving target. But in a sense, he was just expending a lot of energy. Notice that by contrast, Alex Pereira is really conserving energies, just taking small steps, not moving his head around a lot, not waving his arms around a lot, and not really a fan of course, the reaching with the lead hand and the posting, and I'm certainly not a fan of the fly swatting type motions that Jiri was doing to prevent Alex's strikes from landing. Now, to his credit, Jiri did have one good moment in that first round where he timed one of Alex's punches and kind of came in underneath that to secure the body clinch, and then drove Alex against the cage. Now, from that position though, Jiri wasn't able to advance, meaning he wasn't able to get Alex down on the ground. Alex just defended that position against the cage well. He had what we call the whizzer grip, meaning he took an overhook with his left arm over Jiri's arm, which was underneath Alex's armpit, and then they were both fighting Alex with his right hand versus Jiri's left hand off to the side. Eventually, Pereira did manage to pivot out, turn counterclockwise, and just get off the cage and then go back to the striking game. Now, here's where the fight turned, was literally right at the bell. Right at the bell on the first round, what does Alex do? He lands this perfect short left hook, and one of his patented punches, and it lands flush on Jiri's chin because Jiri's outstretched with his left hand, and he did not have his right hand up in a guard position to protect himself from Alex's left hook. Now, as a side note, big props to my MMA coach, Manny Tic Huerta, who literally called it that morning at the end of practice. He made us all do this right hand, left hook offense defense drill, and said, someone's getting dropped with the left hook tonight, and he was 100% right. It's imperative that you drill keeping up your guard against a left hook. Now, I say that was effectively the end of the fight because Jiri did not recover from that. He got dropped hard. He got up. He tried bouncing around to show that he was okay, but it was pretty clear that he was damaged. He was badly damaged by that left hook, and the 60-second rest was just not enough to have him recover. Now, on another side note, I'm not so sure that his corner people did the best job at reviving him. We could see that someone was holding a plastic bag of ice to the back of his neck. But when a person gets dropped like that, you need to do a little bit more than just sort of the ice on the back of the neck. You probably want ice water on their lower back. You want to throw cold water on them. You literally have to kind of just shock them back into being present. So, again, the art of being a cut man. You got to know how to revive a fighter in the corner when they've been hurt, and you literally only got 30 seconds to 35 seconds to do your work. So not shocking. The bell for the second round rings. Jiri goes right back out there, but he's not by any means fully recovered. Alex knows that, and so right off the bat, Jiri's got his hands low as always, and Alex just right off the bat shoots in for what we call that switch head kick. So what that means is Alex fights out of an orthodox stance, so his left foot is forward. A switch kick means he's quickly shifting to a southpaw stance, so now his left foot is back, and then he throws that left foot up for a roundhouse kick to Jiri's head. The reason you want to switch like that is because when your leg is in the rear position, you've got more power because you've got more torque with your hips. And so that was all she wrote. Jiri goes down from that kick. Alex just follows up with ground and pound as Jiri turns into a turtle position on all fours on the ground, and the ref waves it off. Now, those of you who watched the rest of the footage, you saw Jiri try to stand back up with the ref's help, which was an odd decision because he didn't have his legs underneath him. So why would you bother trying to get him to stand up? You should just let the fighter stay on the ground until someone brings out the stool, then help him get up on the stool and allow him to slowly try to recover. But in any case, clear dominant win by Alex Pereira. He was in control of absolutely every moment of that fight, and looked so dominant that now folks like Joe Rogan are calling for him to move up to heavyweight to see what he can do there. Now that's an interesting proposal, but let's remember, that's another 60 pounds or whatever it is. I mean, he's going to be giving away 50 pounds at the moment at least, but I guess the attraction at heavyweight is, of course, a potential fight with Jon Jones, which would be huge for anybody. Any fight Jon Jones is in is a big fight. So if that's what Alex has his heart set on, I mean, I think he earned that. My only concern is that if he chooses to move up to heavyweight, remember, Jon Jones took a long time to do that because he did it the smart way by lifting. PED used aside, you're still going to have to lift heavy and lift over a duration of time if you want to put on quality size. So who would you guys like to see Alex Pereira take on next? Do you want him to see him move up to heavyweight, or do you feel he's better off staying at light heavy for a little bit longer? Now, one final thought about UFC 303, which is I would be remiss if I didn't give huge props to both Diego Lopes and Dan Ige. Oh my goodness, talk about a zero notice fight. I mean, I've taken fights on 3-day notice, which is almost no notice, but literally Dan Ige took that fight that day, sometime that I guess around noon or early afternoon. It's like, hey, you want to fight tonight? You want to fight Diego Lopes? And he stepped up to the plate. So we got to give him props for doing that, and we've got to give Diego Lopes props for first he just agreed to go up from 145 to 155. Apparently, he was informed overnight overnight before the weigh-in that Brian Ortega wasn't going to make the 145, so could they move it up to 155? he agreed to that. Both Lopez and Ortega weighed in for 155, and then lo and behold, the morning of the fight, something happened with Brian Ortega. They're saying apparently it was reported that he had a fever of 103. Does that remind you of a song, maybe? And so they pulled him out. They pulled him from that fight. Now, last minute scrambling. I don't know how they did it, but I guess because Dan Ige is a local in Vegas, you know, they probably just reached out to all the locals. And huge props to Dan Ige for taking a literally zero notice fight and actually getting in there and throwing down. Like, he came to fight and he went the distance. So that's huge props to him. Obviously he was in camp already for July 20th, but that's, you know, it's still like 3 weeks out. So for him to, you know, step in there now, pretty incredible stuff. So I sure hope the UFC takes care of both men. They certainly earned a bonus for doing this. You know, Diego for agreeing first to move up another 10 pounds and then move up another 10 pounds the day of the fight and fight a completely different person than he'd been training for. So incredible stuff. Shows you how mentally strong a lot of these fighters are. So let me know your thoughts on UFC 303. Tell me who you guys want to see all of these fighters fight next. And if you enjoyed this video, you're always welcome to head over to the super thanks button. If you look down below this video on the right hand side, there's a little icon that says thanks. You can click on that and make a donation starting at $2 US. Or if you'd rather not donate any funds to the YouTube corporation, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/Hamaguchi-fight and buy me a coffee starting at $5 US. As always, whether you donate or you do not donate, that's fine. I'll continue to make the best content available, and I look forward to reading all your comments below. Thank you again for listening.